second will be moderated by Johannes and Moisio and Anna. First of all, we would like to make some introductory speeches, but my introductory speech is already done. I think I should not go further because yesterday I already talked too much, and I have to talk a little bit later, so I think it's okay. We will have two introductions, one from Ms. Sandra Schulz, it's well pronounced.
Very well.
Thank you very much. And another one by Mr. Branislav Bugarski.
That is perfect.
Excellent. So I think the best is that I shut up and I will pass the floor to the lady first, and afterwards to Guillermo.
Good morning. My name is Sandra Schulz. I come from the Serbian European Integration Office, although it sounds like an NGO. It's a governmental office that is dealing with all activities related to integration of Serbia to EU, meaning negotiations, but also with European Union funds. At the moment it is IPA, Instrument for Pre-Accession, and I'm heading a sector that is implementing cross-border cooperation program. There is a link. There is a link with what is our subject today. I would like to thank the organizers, the Association of European Border Regions, for inviting us and giving us an opportunity to promote cross-border cooperation programs. Although it's Sunday, I'm very glad to see you all here, and I hope that we will have a chance to talk a little bit later, that we'll have an opportunity to exchange the views and opinions on the program themselves. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think also for us it's a pleasure that you are here, because we have established a very interesting partnership with several institutions, but I think that in your case, your institution is for us the most strategic here. So I hope that we will do many things together.
I'm sure.
Thank you. Then now I will give the floor to my dear colleague, Mr. Branislav Bugarski. He's the Provincial Secretary for Interregional Cooperation and Local Self-Government at the province of Vojvodina, and part also of one of our member regions, the DKMT. So it's a big pleasure to have you here on Sunday.
Thank you very much. I cannot say it's always nice to be on Sunday somewhere, because for sure it's not always the case. But it is very important to keep the dialogue. And I think you have chosen a beautiful and very interesting topic to discuss, and that is the role of cross-border cooperation in maintaining the peace. And I assume you're meaning within the Europe and also the outskirts of Europe, and especially if we consider what's happening today around Europe. I'm sure that we can very easily recognize the importance of today's discussion. I'm always glad to discuss with people, and I think that it will be the most important political challenge for the future, especially in Europe, is to discuss the topic, why is Europe so important? And do we really can follow this? I would describe it as hypocrisy, that administration in Brussels is only a burden and a challenge for the national states, or do we really have a common project which basically our political fathers and grandfathers have decided to keep the peace in Europe after two dramatic wars that we have witnessed in our continent, and also at that point of time recognizing the importance of cooperation for the future economic development, because this peace can be only kept if everybody can follow at least the basic, let's say, the basics of well-being. And that is those are two topics which I would say are the basic topics for having European Union, keeping and developing European Union. Before I come to my speech, I would only extend it with one following question. I'm convinced European federalist, though Serbia is not in European Union, but we have to have in our mind the future and also to follow what's happening in Europe, because we hope together we are one team, as you can see, quite young. One from Serbia, which is very much involved for the past 10 years in integration process on a different administrative levels, but from the same task. And due to that fact, I think it's also our obligation to follow what's happening and what will be our common future, and how also what will be the role of our country within this, I would say, united Europe, which we should and have to consider as a political task in the next, let's say, 10 to 20 years. It's not so far away, but very important one. So, dear colleagues, I will use the opportunity to first say that I'm glad for being here with you and that we have open discussion topic which is of great importance in Europe in the second decade of 21st century and wisely initiated by AEBR. As many of you are belonging to new young generation born in the 90s, it is challenging for you to fully understand the overall purpose of all forms of cooperation which now exist in Europe, especially after the Second World War and creation of the first agreements and institutions which had preceded the European Union. As we like to say in Vojvodina, a lot of water has passed the Danube. Before we all have felt all the advantages that the exchange of people, services and goods have created for citizens in Europe. And most important is that Europeans have created peace on its continent. I have already spoken about it. But we all need to be careful and to constantly strengthen institutions and overall communication to preserve it and leave the legacy to the new generation. As we can recall, first European cross-border region, the EU region, was established in 1958 on the Dutch-German border in the area of Enschede and Gronau. Enschede is in Holland, Netherlands, and Gronau is in Germany. Since then, Euro regions and other forms of cross-border cooperation have developed throughout Europe, and their purpose is significant in maintaining peace. In the past, borders were placed where intensive life in one country ends, with economic and social activity being on the low level with strong migration of the local population. That process is evidently influencing stability on all governance levels and needed policy, which is now strongly supported by the European Union, have been created. Many forms of cross-border programs and institutions now exist, and we are witnessing that the available money and areas of possible cooperation are increasing, including different cross-border, transnational and interregional programs, as well as bilateral funds created by regional and local authorities. The Republic of Serbia can participate in 8 border and transnational programs and autonomous province of Vojvodina in 6 cross-border programs with Hungary, Romania, Croatia, Adriatic Union Program, and Danube region. So the Republic of Serbia can use around 21.1 million euro annually for 8 cross-border and transnational cooperation programs, of which Vojvodina can use vast majority, try out municipalities, throughout municipalities, NGOs, educational and cultural institutions and other non-profit institutions based in the province. As the Provincial Secretariat for Interregional Cooperation and Local Self-Government maintain different forms of interregional, international and cross-border cooperation as well as European integration process, on this occasion I will emphasize by presentation of the regional cooperation Danube-Križ-Mureš-Tisa Euro region, which is the member of AEBR, has to be underlined and emphasized. which was established on November 21st in 1997, so already 17 years ago, in Szeged. Autonomous province of Vojvodina, besides the air region in we are chairing the Euro region, which I mentioned in 2014 and 15. Our historical mission was to organize the cooperation of the border areas of the three countries so that the region could reach the best possible position in unified and peaceful Europe. Euro region was created by the two counties in Hungary, Part6 and Csongor. Those are two counties on the south of Hungary. Three counties in Romania, Arad, Timișoara, and Karaș-Severin. That is the complete west border of Romania. And autonomous province of Vojvodina, which is the northern part of Republic of Serbia. Representatives from economic and scientific life and civil spheres worked together on the fact that the current shortcomings of border areas turn into advantages and opportunities to the local people, business organizations, research institutions, and all interested subjects who realize that collateral development area can be archived in intensification of cooperation and mobility of all inhabitants of the Euro region. Consequently, DKMT-EU region can be summarized in 3 points. Cooperation must be organized keeping in mind mutual interests in an atmosphere of mutual trust based on the ideals of democracy and the principles of the European policy of territorial development. The second one is cooperation must ensure optimal utilization of the advantages and opportunities offered by the region. And finally, usage of strong, versatile and institutional cooperation in achieving the Euro region goal of becoming one of the economic, political, cultural, scientific and innovation centers in Central and Eastern Europe. In that sense, Euro region is taking into account the views of the basic documents of the European Union while preserving the multicultural traditions, supporting and encouraging the democratization of all fields of cooperation, establishing human context beyond institutional forms, deepening the mechanisms of democracy as well as the elimination of prejudices and latent antipathy. Generation of transborder relations help strengthen the competitiveness and expanding capacity for absorption of the polity. And support the implementation of coordinated development programs that help improve the quality of life and raise the standard of living in the region, and also the elimination of defects which originate from the peripheral border, the location of which will contribute to creating conditions for continuous and dynamic economic development of the region. Over the last years, Euro region showed that the cooperation in the area already overcomes self-competence of the original initiators, especially in the field of exchange of common information service to cooperation in university research, joint programs of youth organizations and harmonization of the functioning of the protection against disasters. This shows that the range of cooperation is already very tight, with elements of cooperation increasingly deepened and intensified. Euro region DKMT is traditionally a multicultural region with cultures of different nations living in the area and influences each other, as they have always belonged to European cultural environment. Looking at the cultural life of the region is an important to stress feature that it has as a collective background. At the beginning of the 19th century, many towns and villages created associations, societies based on the national prerogatives. In this way, the culture acquired mass proportion. In the current time, in major cities of Euro region, there is a rich cultural life. In Timișoara and Szeged exist opera houses. In Szeged, Arad and Timișoara Philharmonic Orchestra. The Szeged and Timișoara have a ballet house, among permanent theater, In Timisoara exists unique trilingual theater, German, Romanian and Hungarian. In Szeged, Novi Sad, Arad, Subotica, Rešice and Kecskemét, there are professional and amateur ensembles, etc. Branches of the applied art are characteristic for the region, many artists at the European level creating these areas. The first public library opened in the early 20th century in Timisoara, with the first museum a few decades later. Today, there are modern libraries with a rich collection of books. In the region, there are nearly 100 museums and memorial houses. Based on these facts, we can point out that although the region is open to accept all different influences, sentimentalism of the national pride contributed to the preservation of the heritage and the specific spiritual values of Euro-region and stable and peaceful atmosphere on the border. As you know, I will call one more time all the recent speakers, and you as well, all the participants, to come to visit Novi Sad on 29th of October on Wednesday, as we will be the host of Youth Video Internet Bridge, the development of cross-border cooperation between the youth of European border region. So, see you in Novi Sad. We'll be very glad to host you there. And really, I would like once again to stress out how important this type of events are, where we have to keep the discussion with young generation, which has no clue how border crossing points look like in United Europe, where the Schengen Agreement exists. They do not know what is meaning to wait in front of embassies for a few hours in order to apply, not to get, to apply for visa. Then you have to stand once again in front of the embassy to see if you have got the visa. And all those issues are allowing us sometimes to forget the importance of common cooperation, common goals, and a strong European Union, of course, in a very friendly and productive cooperation with its neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Branislav. I think it's a very good introduction from a very experienced government, which is taking part in one of the most active cross-border structures in Serbia. There are not many. Initiative to make exchanges of related to cinema, related to theater, related to different cultures. To create this. The current generation, which is in the leading position, is not. I don't think we should be very proud of us, of ourselves. I think we are not at the level of Schumann and all these guys. No, we are not at that level. So we trust that you will forget us and think a little bit more in our grandpa, who was really doing, the peaceful grandpa, not the other one. So I hope you will be able to do that. In any case, we have developed in the India several documents that could be, it's good for academicians, scholars, etc., and maybe for you to have some systematics. If you look at the abstract that I have included for this, I have made a summary of what we call the added value of cross-border cooperation. Because there is a European added value that has to do with the preservation of peace, with the guarantee of human rights, etc. Then we have also socio-economic value, added value, institutional, political, but even cultural, you mentioned. Sometimes everything has, sometimes cross-border cooperation on culture is much more important than economic cooperation, because if you don't have an understanding of the culture of your neighbor, you cannot establish economic cooperation. So sometimes very soft measures are very important, especially in border areas where there are mental barriers to overcome. We can put more border crossings, we can implement Schengen, we can put out the requirements of visa. But if we don't work a little bit on mental barriers, prejudices across the borders, and still this is the case even in the European Union, we are not doing our job. We have still, maybe you could guess, I will not mention any of these borders, but borders within the European Union where people still look across the border to the neighbor with a kind of distance. And this distance comes from centuries of conflicts. Or because the people living in one side of the border, their I know a couple of stories, even in the Balkans this happens, that they said, my grandfather has never moved from his village, but he has had 4 different nationalities, because borders were moving around him. And he said, well, I was Austro-Hungarian, and then I was whatever, and then now I was German, and then I was, and now I don't know what I am. And even I have now a US base, so I don't know if I'm really American or what the hell I am. So, and then this has produced a lot of privileges. So we are also working on this. Everything is important. It's important to develop the territory with good economic measures, but the culture is very, very important. One of our founding fathers in AEBR used to say, because they said that this was said by the founding fathers of the European Union, but I know that in the AEBR we said that before, probably one day before that we did. It says that borders are the scars of history, and this is very true in Europe. Many of the borders has been made before, after, during, and especially after the war by the women. That's it. And even if we want to make one step forward, we have the borders of Africa. You can see they were done in the Conference of Berlin in 1898, and they just sit down, the French, German, British, okay, the Spanish and the Portuguese, they were around there, but I think they didn't talk because they had very little to say. And they just took the pen and said, okay, this is for you, this is for me, this is for these guys, and they did it like that. And when they were putting the borders like this, they were cutting traditional communities, they were cutting cultural entities, even empires in Africa that were lasting forever. But for Europeans, that meant nothing. For Europeans, the question was the distribution of resources, the access to the big waterways, which was the most important issue, and to show strength towards the neighbor. Because also the First World War was at that time being under germination. There was a question of the Prussian Empire to show Basel, to the Ottoman Empire, and to the British Empire, and of course to the French community. The question is that now still the African countries are still suffering from this situation. We are cooperating with the African Union to promote some cross-border cooperation programs in Africa. And you know what is the first thing they are doing? Demarcation and delimitation of the border, because this border was done in a paper with a ball pen of around 1 millimeter. And then when you start this border, you go to the ground, this millimeter is several kilometers. And there is a funny case, well, funny. There is one case in the People's Democratic Republic of Congo, where this line goes exactly in the middle of a place where there is a lot of coltan. This material that they use for mobile phones, it's very expensive. And the border goes over there, this border, and then they say, no, our border goes up to here. And the neighbor said, no, this is the beginning of a big conflict. And then the same is happening with gold mines, diamond mines, etc., etc., etc. So the African Union, and we are supporting them, they are using satellite technology in order to delimitate the border, to demarcate the border, and to agree with the neighbors that the border is there. And then we can do cross-border cooperation afterwards. In any case, they are doing well, because we began in Europe to organize a cross-border hospital 10 years ago between Spain and France. 10 years ago, or 11, and this hospital was only opened the 16th of September 2014, just 1 month ago. Around 7 years ago, I was explaining to Ambassador Diarra in Addis Ababa about this project, and he said, we have a problem between Mali and Burkina Faso, and a cross-border hospital would be a good option, because we don't have resources for 2 hospitals, but 1. Cross-border could be a good idea. Then 3 years later, he phoned me and said, Martin, we have opened a hospital. What's happened with yours? Well, we have to sign a paper. The minister in France says that they cannot sign with the regional minister in Catalonia because it's a different level. Then we have a problem. The question is that the Africans did the hospital in 3 years, and we have taken 11 years having money, resources, regulations, EETC, cross-border cooperation programs, big agreements, European Union, whatever. We couldn't. It was not possible because there was a big asymmetry between national, regional, etc. So I think that this is the lesson learned here is that we have to be open, even if we are we have a very nice integration process. We have to open our eyes, our ears, because we can learn from everywhere. That's why I'm coming here to the Balkans, not the wise Western European guys coming, okay, this is our tool, please use it because this is fantastic, I tell you. No. We're coming here to listen very carefully what's going on. Because even in Africa, in the poorest part of Africa, they give us some lessons. Even in Latin America, we are working with the Mercosur, with the Andean community, and with the Central American integration system. And they are also developing very interesting cross-border programs without big publicity. They just do it. They have avoided in the last 20 years a couple of big conflicts between Honduras, Nicaragua, and El Salvador by agreement on cross-border cooperation. And they don't make big speeches and big stories. So we have to be humble, especially the European Union. Not everything is fine, and there is a lot of things to learn. And of course, we have learned that we have to learn a lot from the future generations, because all the knowledge coming from the old generations is already there. I think we have made good study, but now the question is there are new tools. We have internet. We have digital technologies that probably are more addressed to the new generation, and you will be able to do a better use of that. And we, which are a little bit older, we have to learn. In fact, when my iPhone is broken or it's not working, I give it to my daughter, 11 years old, and she said, Papi, it's this, it works. So I think this is also a very interesting lesson for the future. Thank you very much for letting me share with you these thoughts. This will be my last speech, I promise. Anyway, because I will leave this afternoon to another activity, but you will stay the rest of these days in very interesting places, Novi Sad, in Pirot, with a very interesting group of AEBRians, as we call it. I hope you will also become AEBRians in the future. You will have the chairman of our task force external borders. You have our colleagues from Ukraine, Alexei Kiryukhin. You will have Anna Nikolov, of course. Ricardo, who is our communication officer, will be with you also. He will be very happy to make not only this, but also to prepare some, if you want to have some special video shots to be put in YouTube. This is also his vision. And I will try to pay a look over the internet to see what you are doing, because I think that many very interesting issues will come out of this experience. Thank you very much again.